Hello and welcome to Bust or Trust, a kids' mystery podcast. I'm Tiernan.
And I'm Athena. Bust or Trust is the podcast where we unravel the world's greatest mysteries with help from you, our chief detectives.
We present all the best evidence and then ask you to decide. Which team are you on?
Are you a mythbuster like me?
Or are you a myth truster like me? We look into all sorts of strange stories from around the world. No mystery is too big for us. Like, if Cinderella's shoe fit her perfectly, then why did it fall off?
Good question. I reckon it's because she didn't do up her laces properly.
Classic mistake. That's why I stick to Velcro every time. Of course. There, all done. Anyway, we'll tell you at the end of the show just how to get in touch so you can let us know if you're on Team Buster or the best one, Team Truster.
So, chief detectives, get ready to take notes and start putting together your case while we have a quick word with the grown-ups.
Hello you, and also you. Whether you're on Team Truster, the best one, or Team Buster, if you enjoy my silliness on this podcast, then why not listen to me and a whole host of very, very funny guests talk complete rubbish on my other kids' podcast, Radio Nonsense. Each week, we don't really answer a question that you send in, and it sounds a lot like this.
If you prepare the inside of the Hoover bag properly, I think a dog can have a very happy life inside a vacuum cleaner.
Oh, good. I know that, I about halfway through, that's when I usually poo in my pants, and I know that I've made it to halfway through.
We're getting complaint emails every day from spiders specifically.
Because even though you come out as spaghetti, you come out as alpha spaghetti, okay, which is different, okay?
One of those guests sounded strangely familiar. Suitable for all ages, check out the Radio Nonsense podcast wherever you get your podcasts from or delivered by your local podgoblin.
The case.
Prepare to be amazed, Athena, as I transform our Bust or Trust HQ desk into pure gold.
Why would we want a pure gold desk?
I'm not sure. Anyway, here I go.
Tiernan, you've just covered all my research in... What is that?
Banana milkshake. I was certain that because it's a sort of golden colour, it might be the right liquid to turn everything else gold.
All it's done is turn everything into a gooey mess. Oh, you'd better clean that up before it... drips on the floor. Too late.
I'll have to try something else then. I was sure banana milkshake was the real Philosopher's Stone, the magical liquid that could change ordinary metal into shiny gold and could be used in a special potion to make someone live forever, also called an elixir of life.
But banana milkshake is yellow, not golden, and I can't imagine it tastes like an elixir of life either. Does it?
No. Tastes like bananas. But that might be what the elixir of life tastes like. We just don't know.
I know. I think the elixir of life tastes like nothing because the Philosopher's Stone doesn't exist.
Well, that's up to our chief detectives to decide. I'll start cleaning up, and while I do, you tell the chief detectives all about this week's case.
In medieval times, alchemy was the study of chemicals, and alchemists, the people who studied it, spent most of their time trying to find out how to turn basic metals like copper or tin into gold. Can you do that more quietly?
How has it gone everywhere? I only spilled a little bit.
You spilled most of the cup. Anyway, in this study, the substance that was most sought after, which means wanted, by alchemists, was known as the Philosopher's Stone. No one has ever been sure what the Philosopher's Stone is, and there's a good chance it's definitely not a stone at all. Some people have believed it's a powder or tincture, which means a type of extract from a plant or animal. For many years, alchemists believed finding it was the greatest goal, and once they had, they'd be able to add the Philosopher's Stone to any basic metal, and it would instantly turn it into gold.
They also believed that the Philosopher's Stone could be used to create a liquid that would make people young again, or even immortal, if they drank it mixed with wine. For hundreds of years, alchemists tried experiments with every possible substance they could find to see if it was actually the Philosopher's Stone, but they had no luck.
Some of the greatest scientific minds at the time joined the search in the 17th century, including Roger Boyle, who is thought to have been the first ever modern chemist, and Sir Isaac Newton, the man who discovered gravity. But the Philosopher's Stone is long thought to be just a myth, and it has inspired many works of art and stories, including, most famously, the very first Harry Potter book, which, in most of the world, was called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone.
But I reckon today I can prove the Philosopher's Stone really exists.
Can you? All you've done so far is spill a milkshake.
It's called an alchemy experiment, Athena.
No it's not. It's called a mess. Okay, Chief Detectives, time to solvent the case.
Let's see how you react to piece of evidence number 1.
First piece of evidence.
The first piece of evidence is the many mentions of the Philosopher's Stone throughout history, in writings and religious texts. Book number 1. The very first mention of it is in the world's oldest book about alchemy, called the Cherok Meta, or Things Made by Hand. It was written around 300 AD by an ancient Greek alchemist called Zosimos of Panopolis. Many alchemists believe that a substance Plato wrote about was the Philosopher's Stone, a liquid he thought was the origin of the 4 elements. The 4 elements are fire, earth, water and air. And here are more books. Throughout the Middle Ages, alchemists from Europe, the Arab Empire and the Byzantine Empire, which is the part of the world we know as the Mediterranean today, they wrote many, many books. In the 17th century, a mysterious mystical book called the Mutus Liber had no words, but it had symbols that some people thought were clues to a recipe of exactly how to make the Philosopher's Stone, a mysterious and magical substance.
It obviously didn't work, did it? Otherwise, we wouldn't be looking at this case and everything would have been turned to gold by now. You have a lot of heavy books there, Tiernan, but the tricky part about all these writings on the Philosopher's Stone is that they were written by alchemists who believed the so-called stone was real and were all trying to find it. Alchemy is what's known as a proto-science, which means a very early form of science, with some of the things scientists use today. But it was practiced before we knew as much about how the world works as we do now. Alchemy pretty much stopped after the 17th century because it was overtaken by chemistry, which really looked at how the atoms and qualities of chemicals worked. Chemistry proved that much of what alchemists believed in didn't actually make sense.
Here you go. I've got more text, Athena. The Philosopher's Stone isn't just talked about by alchemists. Many religions also believe it to be real. In Buddhism, there are stories about the Philosopher's Stone, and in Hinduism, it's called the Sintamani. In Christianity, some think a stone mentioned in the Bible might be the Philosopher's Stone given by God to Adam, the first man on earth.
Alchemy was closely linked to religion and mysticism, which meant it didn't become a real science. Alchemists often trusted their beliefs more than what evidence or real research could prove, which is why so many alchemists spent a long time searching for the Philosopher's Stone. There are mentions of many different types of gods in books by alchemists, so it's possible that the whole idea of it started with religion. However, it doesn't mean the Philosopher's Stone is real, as there's still no proof of it anywhere, whatever it actually is.
Well, someone claimed to have found proof that it exists, so let's analyse the second piece of evidence.
Second piece of evidence.
In 1382, a French bookseller named Nicolas Flamel said that he and a Spanish scholar decoded an ancient Hebrew book of alchemy and used it to understand the secrets of the Philosopher's Stone. Hebrew was an ancient language spoken across North Africa and parts of the Mediterranean up until the year 200 BC. It was brought back in the 19th century and is now still used by members of the Jewish religion. But at the time Nicolas Flamel was given this book, very few people spoke or understood Hebrew at all. It all started by Flamel saying he had a strange dream about an angel who told him that he would be able to see something in a book that no one else could. The next day, a stranger handed Flamel a manuscript that was written by someone called Abraham. It was written in many languages, including Hebrew, and included many symbols, which Flamel learned were alchemy signs. Flamel spent 21 years trying to decode what it all meant, but getting nowhere. He travelled to Spain, where a Jewish scholar helped him to understand the first few pages in Hebrew. The scholar said he would travel back to France with Nicholas and help him read the rest, but sadly, he didn't survive the journey. Luckily, Flamel had learnt enough Hebrew from him that after 3 years he claimed he'd translated the whole book and now understood the secrets of the Philosopher's Stone. He didn't reveal these secrets to the world though, and instead Nicolas Flamel suddenly became very wealthy. In fact, he became so rich that King Charles VI ordered an investigation as to why Flamel was now so rich. But the investigation went nowhere. Flamel lived well into his 80s, which was pretty unusual for the 14th century. Is that because he'd managed to make an elixir of youth?
It actually wasn't that unusual for people to live into their 80s. We know that in the 14th century in Europe, the average lifespan was 50 years old. But that just means it's the average. So, if you take all the people who sadly didn't live very long at all, and all the people who lived until they were old, add them up, and then divide it by the total number of people, you'll get the average age they died.
Hang on, let me get my calculator. Okay, so I work out the average lifespan by people young, add people old, then divide it by total number of people equals the average age they live. Yeah, got it.
Many people did live till they were 80 or older, especially if they had money and a good quality of life. So no, I don't think Nicholas Flamel did find the elixir of youth. Firstly, because there is no evidence that he did, or that he found the Philosopher's Stone. But also, mainly, because that entire story that you just told us from the many big books that he got there didn't come from Flamel himself at all, but from a book about him that was written over 300 years later. The works, writings and designs in the book were all credited to Flamel, but a history critic called Etienne Verlaine believed that the real author was the person who had published it. Later evidence by historians show that Flamel may have given alchemy a try, but wasn't that interested in it and didn't have the amazing wealth he was said to have had. It was all part of a story of his life that was made up years later.
But there are other writers who insist the book were all pieces written by Flamel himself as well. It went on to inspire many alchemists, including, as you mentioned earlier, Isaac Newton. And Flamel also wasn't the only person that claimed to have discovered the Philosopher's Stone. The 13th century scientist Albertus Magnus is also said to have discovered it too.
Yeah, but that's just a legend, and he did become a saint, so there were a lot of stories about him that seem to have been exaggerated. Albertus Magnus wrote a lot, and nowhere in his writings does he say anything about the Philosopher's Stone. Though he does mention once seeing the creation of gold by transmutation. That means changing one thing into another. But he could have just seen something become gold in colour.
Or he could have witnessed the effect of the Philosopher's Stone. Because as you'll see, the final piece of evidence is pure gold.
Third piece of evidence.
In 2022, scientists discovered that by using a material called graphene, they can extract gold from electronic waste. Graphene is made of graphite, which is pure carbon. By inserting a small sheet of graphene into a liquid solution that is as little as 1/1000,000% gold, when they remove the sheet, it will be covered in gold. No other chemicals are needed at all, and it helps reduce waste. Ta-da! A Philosopher's Stone.
What an amazing discovery, and it's definitely good for the planet and for getting some gold. But even if it might be a real modern-day Philosopher's Stone, graphene was only discovered in 2004, so there is no way that's what the alchemists were searching for hundreds of years ago. Some historians suggest that the Philosopher's Stone was never meant to be real, and it was just a symbol all along of people's connection to a god or higher power, and something for alchemists to aim for. You know, like a motivational goal.
It is weird they wanted to turn metals into gold.
Well, gold was worth a lot of money back then, and it still is today.
Yeah, but imagine all the even better things they could have turned metal into. Welcome to the Global Newsreel, an amazing new discovery announced by famous scientist Dr. Gruff, which will change the face of science forever.
Ladies and gentlemen, you might not believe what you're about to see, but I promise it's a game changer for science. Behold my latest experiment. In this cylindrical flask here, a simple block of lead.
Will you be turning it into gold, sir? Have you found the secret?
No, not gold, something much, much better. Prepare to witness the start of the future. As this mixture of substances that I have spent years preparing drips onto the block of lead, it will begin to change into a goat. That's right, we can now successfully turn any metal into goats. Ladies and gentlemen, nothing will ever be the same again.
Dr. Gruff's formula has already been shipped all over the world, and is changing metal into goats wherever possible. Cars, dockyards, office buildings, and even, I'm not kidding, the Eiffel Tower.
Mon Dieu, les chefs!
Dr. Gruff has been awarded the Nobel Prize for Goat, greatest of all time. But what next for the scientist?
And now begin my experiments to turn all the water into swine. Don't goats eat everything, though?
Yeah, they do. So all the metal would turn into goats and everything else into goat food.
I'm not sure about that. You know who does have the best ideas, though? Our chief detectives. And now it's time for you to decide.
Does the Philosopher's Stone really exist, or is it all just a formula for nonsense?
Recap the evidence, please, Tiernan.
Evidence recap.
The first piece of evidence is the many writings about the Philosopher's Stone, starting in ancient Greek texts all the way to the 17th century. Plus, it's mentioned in many religious stories too.
But most of those writings you mention are by alchemists who believed in the Philosopher's Stone, and none of them gave proof that it actually existed.
The second piece of evidence is that French writer Nicolas Flamel found the Philosopher's Stone after studying an ancient text, and he became very rich and lived to a surprisingly old age for the 14th century, maybe because he had taken the elixir of life.
But the whole story of Nicolas Flamel comes from a book written over 300 years later. And the reality is he probably wasn't that interested in alchemy and wasn't rich either. And despite what you might think, it wasn't actually that strange for anyone to live to old age in the 14th century.
The final piece of evidence is that in recent years, scientists have found that by using a substance called graphene, they can extract gold from electronic waste. So it's like a real Philosopher's Stone.
That is amazing, but as graphene wasn't discovered until 2004, there is no way it can be what alchemists in the Middle Ages were trying to find.
So now we're handing it over to you, Chief Detectives.
What do you think? Are you a Philosopher's Stone mythbuster?
Or a Philosopher's Stone myth truster? Get in touch and let us know your thoughts. And most importantly, which side you're on. Team Truster is the real gold result here.
If those chief detectives have their formula right, they'll be on Team Buster. Send us your voice notes with an explanation of why you're a myth truster or myth buster when it comes to whether the Philosopher's Stone is real or not.
All you have to do is ask your grown-ups to help you email us your voice notes or thoughts to hello@bustortrust.com.
Tell us your name, age, what you think all the evidence means, and please make sure your grown-ups give us permission to use your voice notes or emails in our next episode.
You can also send us a question on Spotify Q&A, but please get permission from your parents and don't include any personal details so that we can publish them safely. We won't always be able to use all of them.
But we do love to hear them, and here are some thoughts from you lot, our chief detectives, on the last few episodes.
Hi, my name is Lennox and I am 7 years old and I'm a myth buster for the mystical palace of Baba Vanga because I think she just made some really good guesses and knew her herbs well. Thank you. Goodbye bye.
Lennox, I can tell you're on Team Buster because I can hear you turning the pages possibly of your notes. Excellent chief detective work, Lennox.
We've had this voice message from Sophie all about our episode on the Winchester Mystery House.
Hi, I'm Sophie. I'm from Australia. I'm 10 and a half, and I'm a myth buster because they just don't really add up to be true. Because in one story, they said she doesn't believe in ghosts, but in another, she said that she didn't want to finish the house because the ghost might kill her. And in another, there weren't any names of people who actually felt the ghosts, which apparently were invisible. But in another story, they were almost tinted and could be seen. Oh, and I've also really liked to hear an episode about drop bears in Australia. Thank you.
Oh, Sophie, brilliant chief detective work. You know what Sophie did there? She looked for inconsistencies, right? When things don't add up, that means they add up to Team Buster. Well done, Sophie.
I have to say, Sophie, that is incredible detective work. Even though you're on Team Buster, you've really put together all the bits of information. But also, I know that maybe you could be persuaded to come over to Team Truster because you want us to do an episode on drop bears, those terrifying koalas. And so I know maybe you could come and hang out on Team Truster at some point.
Thanks to every single one of you. What a great team to be part of.
Ah, the best team. And if you enjoyed the show, please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or Amazon Music, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more great episodes. We love to hear what you think, so please do rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps more detectives find, bust or trust. And of course, we'll read out some of your comments on the show.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time for more Bust or Trust.
Athena, I've done more experiments in alchemy.
Oh, this isn't good news.
Oh, it is. You'll see. I haven't managed to turn everything into gold, but I've done the next best thing.
You can turn everything into silver. Oh, that's actually exciting.
Oh, no. I found a really old banana milkshake, and if I just take the cookie you were about to eat...
Hey, I'd better get a silver biscuit.
By pouring some of this onto it, it turns everything into mold.
You've just ruined my cookie. You're not a chemist, you're a menace.
You're welcome.